are some rule changes for Division 1 men's and women's soccer, and I would think this would apply to Division 2 and Division 3 as well, because it didn't specify the game raw. Like, first of all, the first new rule is to require the NCAA game roster to be given to the scorekeeper only, rather than also the opposing coach and the referee. That's interesting. Re-entry after injury. Allow a player after illness or injury who was now substituted to re-enter on the field where they were removed after being beckoned by the referee. The rationale for the first rule was to streamline the game roster exchange. The rationale for this rule that I'm talking about currently is those players who are required to re-enter on the bench of the field, which could cause delay in re-entering if they were removed on the opposite side of the field and cause security issues while walking to the other side. Referee uniform. Establish a uniform required to be worn by all referees by 2023. Like, the rationale is, like, currently the only requirement for the referees is that they have to have the same color and the same style for all officials. This has resulted in conferences establishing their own guidelines for what uniform shirt will be worn, and therefore the necessity for officials to purchase, in some cases, up to 5 different uniforms. This rule would provide a consistent look in uniform across NCAA soccer. That makes sense to me. Post-game duties. Allow the referees to verify the paper box score visually / verbally rather than requiring a signature. The rationale is this is the process for verifying electronic box scores. Video review. They're going to expand a video review to include whether a foul occurred inside or outside the penalty area. The rationale: this situation could be game critical event and easily corrected with the use of video review. This would be the 6th situation that could be reviewed. Okay, the protest of this would be expand and the post-game protest rule to include. Okay, protest is the next thing. Expand the post-game protest to include a review of violent behavior 2 and fighting red cards. The protest, including video of the incident, must be filed within 48 hours of the completion of the game, same as protests, and be submitted by conference official, office, or coordinator of officials. The scope would be limited to changing a violent 2 behavior or fighting red card 2-game suspension to a violent behavior 1 red card, which is 1-game suspension. A committee consisting of the NCAA Men's and Women's Soccer Secretariat, or an NCAA National Coordinator of Soccer Officials, and 1 NCAA Soccer Regional Advisor who is not affiliated with them, with the team, conference, or region, will consider the protest and render a decision. The rationale: of the 1,300 or more red cards issued across all divisions during the 2021 season, 150 were used for violent 2 behavior 2 or fighting. A portion of those, based on video evidence, were incorrect calls and resulted in overturning only penalized student athletes with a 2-game suspension, which most cases is 10% of the season. This post-game review of those specific cards, similar to the process in NCAA football, will provide conferences with an avenue to ensure penalties are appropriate and fair based on the rule. Makes sense to me. Overtime regular season for the regular season. The elimination of eliminate overtime during the regular season. That's going to be so weird because in the past they have had golden goal in the regular season. The rationale is to align with the FIFA laws of the game, reduce playing volume for student athletes, and place value on a tie. In data collected since 2013, 47% of overtime games are left at the end of the overtime periods. Okay, now this is the next thing is overtime postseason. Require overtime periods to be played to completion during postseason. Eliminate the golden goal / sudden victory. Other rule impact is like during the final 5 minutes of the second period or second overtime only. Anytime the leading team makes a substitution, the referee shall signal the clock to be stopped and beckon the substitute onto the field. The rationale is to ensure equal opportunity for both teams during overtime. Conditions such as wind and sun can greatly impact a team or team's ability to attack or defend, and both teams should be afforded the opportunity to play on each half of the overtime periods. If the score is tied at the end of the second overtime, the tiebreaker procedure of taking penalty kicks from the penalty kick line or spot shall continue to be used to determine advancement. So this is probably for the best. It's kind of like what the NFL is doing for overtimes in the postseason now, I believe. I believe so. Okay, suspended game. Resume a suspended game from the point of interruption, whether it is completed the same day or another day. If the game is progressed to 70 minutes, it will be considered complete. If the suspended game is resumed from the point of interruptions, all statistics would carry over to the resumed game, including yellow and red cards. If the suspended game has not reached 70 minutes and is not resumed the same day or another day, the game will be considered a no contest, and all statistics are nullified except for behavior 2, fighting and assault on referee red cards, which are subject to associated penalties in Rule 12. The rationale on this is currently, if a game does not reach 70 minutes and cannot be resumed the same day, the game becomes a no contest and must be completely restarted. This could result in a team playing 69 minutes and then playing for a full 90 minutes the next day rather than for the 21 minutes to complete the contest. Resuming a suspended game from the point of interruption would align soccer with other NCAA sports and minimize physical impact on the student athletes. Now, the last rule to keep in mind is eject both like 17.7.4.2 and 17.12.7.48 4.8.2. Enhance the spitting or biting of any opponent or any other person penalty to a 2-game suspension and categorize it as violent behavior. Behavior 2, red card, and coughing at any opponent or any person to this rule, and also categorize it as a violent behavior 2, red card. To the rationale, to acknowledge these actions do not belong in NCAA soccer and should be penalized accordingly. I get on why the changes are needed, especially the overtime and regular season. And it's good to give both teams a chance to score on both, because one side of the field could be very, very windy, like it stated, while the other side, not so lot so. So it makes a lot of sense. I just want to go over these rules before the season begins, because it's going to begin in less than a week for some teams. So just keep these in mind. Anyways, if you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button. I see you guys later. I was going to get to 400 subscribers and more by the end of this year.